Hi, thanks for joining me today. This is Wednesday, the 17th of November, 2021. I want to dedicate this chat to my friend and mentor, Heidi Day, who's going through some challenges at the time. Heidi, I love you. That being said, it's been exciting here in my area. A Worthy Christmas has been finalized and is now available for you to download at Amazon Kindle. Because these holiday novellas are intended as a gift for regular readers of the Walkerville Desire series. Okay, all right, hang on just a sec. I'm having difficulties with the. Okay, with the. Okay. A Worthy Christmas has been finalized and is now available for you to download at Amazon Kindle. And because these holiday novellas are intended as a gift for regular readers of the Walkerville Desire series, we've priced this as deeply discounted as Amazon will allow. And I'll give you the details in a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about the story. Those of you who have been reading the Walkerville Desire books are familiar with Worthy's, the restaurant that serves as one of the social focal points of the community. But until now, we've never really explored the story of proprietor Cora Worthy and her family. And that's what we're doing in the Christmas novella, A Worthy Christmas. Once they came of age, none of Cora's 4 children wanted to remain in Walkerville to take an ongoing role in the restaurant. And the Christmas novella explores the reason why for her son Gib, who's her oldest, why he wants to journey home now. I want to take a look at some of the mitigating pressures that help Gib decide to come back to Walkerville. Gib Worthy broke the shoelace on his worn high-top sneaker, the only other footwear he owned. His beloved Justin pointy-toed cowboy work boots were with Southpaw Pete. He hurled the unsuitable high top across the cabin that he'd built a few years ago. It was self-contained with its own bathroom and an adequate kitchen. The shoe landed with a thud atop the sleeping Milton Millie McCready. Years ago, Millie was gifted with a small fifth-wheel trailer located a mile away that he had lived in until a week ago when it burned to the ground. Before Gib knew it, he had offered Millie his couch for a few nights, which the old ranch hand took him up on. They made terrible roommates because Millie drank corn liquor he made illegally behind the old ice house a quarter mile from the ranch, and he smoked. The first rule Gib declared was no smoking inside. The other rule concerned Millie's harmonica. When he was drunk, Millie played Red River Valley on the tuneless, rusty harmonica for hours. He was to hand over the harmonica after the first drink. Retrieving the shoe, Gib sat at the table and pulled the drawstring from his sweatshirt hoodie. Impatiently, Gib threaded it through the shoe. These tennis shoes sucked. They threatened to fall off when he was chasing lost calves yesterday, and they hurt like hell on his heel. He would have to see if his boots were ready. Southpaw Pete was technically the ranch maintenance guy. In his free time, he was a skilled leather worker that everyone on the ranch turned to for boot mending. Gib needed those boots. Stepping out into the glacial December pre-dawn, Gib hunkered deeper into the sweatshirt under his Sherpa-lined denim jacket. He shielded his ears with a woolen watch cap, then enclosed his hands in a fleece-lined work gloves. He would have to take them off once he started repairing the fences several miles over the crest, but he was grateful for their warmth in the meantime. And his body was grateful for taking the time to eat breakfast. The hot oatmeal and hot coffee settled happily in his stomach, a protection against the bitter morning. His mother's face came to him unbidden. It had been years since he'd seen her. But just now, as he stomped his inadequate tennis shoes in the hard-packed, cold dirt walkway to his truck, he was a 10-year-old kid again, sitting at Tasty Spoon's counter, kicking the counter as he twirled around on the stool, waiting for his mom to dish up a hot bowl of oatmeal topped with brown sugar, evaporated milk, and plump raisins. He remembered her smiling as he contentedly ate his breakfast many years ago. He felt a tide of longing fill his heart as he started up the truck. The heater kicked in immediately, and his thoughts returned to his mother. Pride, shame, if he was honest with himself, were the main reasons he never got in touch with his family. He was the oldest, his mother's favorite, and he was the dropout who made a living with his body, his hands, and not his mind as his mother had wanted for him. Smelling the burning logs from the main ranch house chimney, he thought about Christmas. The Fontaines always had a Christmas meal for the half-dozen ranch hands who lived there. There was turkey, mashed potatoes, pumpkin, the whole works, served in the vast kitchen of the main house. They always got a Christmas bonus depending on their length of service with the family. He'd been with them for over 10 years, so he reckoned he'd get a pretty good chunk. He drove to where he'd left off yesterday, about 10 acres up the bridle path, checking to make sure the fences were intact after the lazy days of summer and the unexpected torrents of autumnal rain. During the height of summer, the cattle had muscled through large sections of weakened fencing, uprooting the barbed wire with their thick hides so they could wade through the cool creek out by the neighboring property. The Loftons, who owned that plot, were in financial distress and were amenable to selling the Fontaines 25 acres. This would ensure easy water access for the livestock. The creek would be a welcome addition in more ways than just for the cattle. Ensuring water rights was always a wise move. He loved the winter stillness. It held a deeper calm than the summer's busy bird and animal prattle. Out here, there were no sounds other than his hammer and his occasional swearing to himself. There was no one talking incessantly about girlfriends or money problems or worrying about life. His mind wandered. He liked working alone. He liked living alone. He liked the life he had built himself. No attachments. Most of the time he loved his life, except when he didn't. He had been feeling restless the past few weeks, since Thanksgiving, if he was honest. "Damn," he yelled, sucking the thumb he had just tried to staple to the fence post. What the hell was going on with him? He never had injured himself on the job. Throwing down the staple gun, he fumbled with the buckles of his tool bag, letting everything slide to the fairly dry ground. He flung himself against the nearest fence post that hadn't been stapled with barbed wire yet, and heaved some deep breaths that could easily become a crying drag, something he really wanted to avoid, even if he was alone. His thumb throbbed. There was no wound, no puncture, so there would be no infection, just a black and blue thumb tip for a few weeks. Most likely he would lose the fingernail. He opened up a bottle of water and poured some cool water on it. And he got up and crawled to the lower part of the fence towards the river bed the cows were so fond of scuttling towards during the height of summer. It was cold now in December, but he could appreciate the cattle's intuitive drive to get down to the water. He plunged his whole hand in the icy stream until it was numb and red. He pulled it out, cradling his thumb to his chest, and wrapped it with a bandana. He cried. He shouldn't be alone when this type of thing happened to him. Then he noticed the bandana was a faded black and white one that looked like gray splotches. It was a gift from Uncle Sid, who told him that real cowboys always had a bandana just in case. He cried for his Uncle Sid, who was the only person who understood without any word who Gib Worthy really was. Maybe it was because Uncle Sid was the same. A loner, a wonderful uncle, a gambler, the big-hearted younger brother with a part-time real estate business who didn't want anything to do with the tasty spoon, the legacy their parents had left him and his brother, Harvey, Gib's dad. Gib was 12 years old when his uncle caught him gazing at Raymond Wilson too long. Raymond was 3 years older than Gib. He was the golden-haired boy wonder with his curls, his blue eyes, his sweet smile, and his affable personality. Gib and Sid sat in the back booth having a late lunch. They were celebrating a couple of things. One, his uncle had finally sold Sheriff Johnston's mother's delayed maintenance house, and he was celebrating with the cheeseburgers, the fries, O-rings, the works. And number two, Gib had made the 7th grade honors list, making the whole family proud. Raymond popped in shortly after the lunch rush for an order to go for his little brother Arthur, who had broken his arm falling off his tricycle. Sid noticed his nephew's jaw drop when the door opened. He turned around to see Raymond, son of Fire Chief Matt Wilson. He waved to Gib, who gulped and then waved back, his face blooming like a fiery red balloon. When Raymond finished his transaction, he waved goodbye. Gib's gaze lingered on the closed door for some time. Sid was quiet, eating, pouring the clear substance from the brown paper bag into his coffee cup. Harvey hated when he brought booze into the restaurant. Sid shook his head and gazed at his oldest nephew, who was now inhaling French fries as if he couldn't get enough to eat. Make sure the other person likes you back. There could be a lot of hurt and name-calling if you like someone and they don't like you, he said casually as he took a long swallow of his coffee. Gib's thin shoulders shrugged a little too nonchalantly. He's just my friend. Sheriff Johnson's my friend, but I don't get all steamed up when he says hi to me or goodbye to me, Sid chortled. Gib felt like he'd been found out. He wanted to vomit. He almost didn't hear Sid whisper, "Hey, Gib, it's okay. It's me, Uncle Sid. I got your back, son. Just be careful. Just be careful." Sid died the next day. A month later, the Worthies were in California. Sid had left an inheritance that allowed Gib's family to buy a restaurant near the ocean. The family loved Walkerville, and Gib made friends for the first time in his life. Paz, Francis, Rowan, Carl, Ruth, Ginny. Life got busy with the whole family at his mother's insistence, working in the restaurant, and he didn't even mind that. At 18, Gib applied for a university back east. He wanted to get to the other side of the country, as far away from his family as he could. By then, his dad had died, leaving the running of the whole restaurant to his mother, who was driven. Neither he nor his siblings felt the slightest tug for Worthies the way his mother did. What Worthies did was give them the opportunity for an education, to leave home legitimately, which all 4 siblings took without a backward glance. Gib heaved himself awake. He had fallen asleep in the cold. The clouds were lower. The strong sunlight had given way to a darkening that portended rain. Hurrying to collect his gear, he finished up the last of the repairs before heading back to his truck, just as a winter storm pelted the world. He sat in the truck cab, winter heater cranking, windows starting to frost up. The afternoon's reverie had opened his heart to a yearning so intense he could hardly breathe. He missed his family. Actually, the person he missed was his mother. He missed her practical nature, her ability to carry a vision for the entire family and bring it to fruition. He knew she was the force behind their move to California. And several days later, he's in Walkerville. Gib let out a huge sigh that resonated in the quiet of the cab. Without further dallying, he opened the door and jumped out. Before his courage left, he put himself on autopilot, locked the truck, walked to the restaurant, opened the door, Just do it. Wasn't that some sort of Logan that was now world renowned? Oh, shut it, Gib, he chastised. Just do it. A welcoming evergreen wreath dotted with hollyberries festooned the front door with the blinking holiday lights outlining it. The large foyer with its black and white tile floors and 2 hall trees on either side of the shaker-style oak chairs were some of the items Cora had recycled from the bank, and they stood merrily lit with holiday lights. Sprigs of mistletoe hung over the entrance to the dining room door. Striking out of his coat, Gib dropped it over a hook on one of the hall trees. Venturing on into the restaurant, Gib conjured all the factory memories of his father's meatloaf and vats of chili with pans of cornbread. He heard the voices of his family, of Cora's tight, controlling whisper that the 4 children behaved themselves. He remembered other Christmases that he'd shared with his siblings in their upstairs apartment. He found himself at the hostess stands, another bank remnant. The spot commanded a view of the entire operation, the whole dining room, the front door, the back view, the swinging kitchen door. This was his mother's domain. Unless called away, she stood behind it, next to it, in front of it, near it. The whole restaurant was duly decorated for the season with strings of tiny lights, a half-dozen more wreaths on the wall. The bar's back mirror had red velvet ribbon with an ornate bow and ornaments fringed on the top half. A large decorated tree stood at the back wall. He wondered whose hands now guided the seasonal look. Since Gib and Vivienne were the oldest, they had always been assigned the task of decking the place for Christmas. Like food, Cora's relationship to holidays was a necessity to please her customers. She felt no emotional attachment to celebrations. Most of the time she forgot her children's birthdays unless she was reminded, usually by Vivienne, who by age 10 had appointed herself the family historian. When his mother took over cooking duties for a few weeks after his father's passing, Gib knew she had felt untethered. At first he thought it was because of Harvey's death. Then one afternoon between lunch and dinner rushes, he noticed his mother gingerly wiping down the hostess station. He had never seen her so patient with any living person or thing. Her whole being was devoted to that simple task. She was that person, not their mother, Harvey's widow, but Cora, worthy owner. At that time, Gib understood his mother's timeline. At that moment, Gib understood his mother's lifeline. Gib unconsciously surveyed the dining room with the practiced eye of his childhood. 2 tables, either late lunch or early dinner, were waiting for orders to be delivered. As he stood there contemplating his next move, his mother rushed out of the double swinging doors of the kitchen. She carried an armload of menus, a clean dishcloth on top. Smiling, Gib knew these items signified the end of the lunch rush. She noticed him immediately and gasped in surprise. Unexpectedly for Gib, she hurried to him, put the menus on the stand, the cloth on top, and grabbed him into a fierce hug. She was smaller than he remembered. And then he remembered that she was always much smaller than the rest of the family. He felt dampness on his shoulder and pulled away. His mother was weeping. He couldn't remember the last time he saw her cry. She touched his dark hair, the same color as his siblings, as hers. "You've got some gray at the temples." His mother made that observation wistfully, tucking some strands behind his hair. Okay, that's it. Sorry about the interruption with the phone. I thought that I had turned it off. This is a sneak peek of Worthy's Christmas for you. And like we mentioned earlier, to get your very own Kindle copy of the story, just click on the link that is below. This should take you directly to Amazon's page for Worthy Christmas. This was a story that we created as a gift for you, the Walkerville readers. Amazon won't let me give it away on their site, but we're permitted to price it at just 99 cents. And if you happen to be a Kindle Unlimited member, it'll be free to you. Now, for those of us who are in the United States, next Thursday, November 25th, is Thanksgiving Day. So I'm guessing that most of you are going to be busy with preparations for whatever you do to observe the day. So we'll be taking next Wednesday, November 24th off, and using some time to consider some of the things I'm grateful for. We will be back the following week, December 1st, Wednesday afternoon at 1, our time in California. Thank you for joining me, and remember that YouTube counts everything. So it means a lot if you give us a thumbs up, and it's really helpful if you subscribe to my channel by clicking that big red button. If you have any questions or comments, there are links to my Facebook and Instagram and my email address. And do check the link to my Amazon page to see all my work which has been published so far. Remember that AC is archiving all these live chats. Check the playlist on my YouTube page. Plus, the direct link for our next Wednesday get-together will be on December 1st at 1 p.m., 2 weeks from today. Thank you, and hope to see you then. Have a safe holiday.